The chance to shape your future is here. Learn and connect with exciting new opportunities. Are you ready for the next step?
Prynawn dda pawb. Good afternoon all, and welcome to our webinar on doing business in the Netherlands. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Tony Hicks and I head up the Welsh Government's team network of international trade advisors who are based throughout Wales in different locations. We work with businesses across and in all sectors, including, of course, the tech sector, which I'm pleased to say is one of the Welsh Government's priority sectors. As I say, this session is actually focused on doing business in the Netherlands. We chose this market for a number of reasons, not least of which is because we know that the Netherlands offers good opportunities for Wales-based tech companies. But in doing so, I think it is important that we cover all aspects of the process and the support available. So I'm delighted that we have been able to secure the services of a number of expert speakers this afternoon, just to illustrate this and the various aspects of doing it. Firstly, we will hear about the opportunities that the market presents from the UK government's tech leads based in the Netherlands, in The Hague, I believe. That is Christian van der Voode and Johannes Kerpenstein. I hope I've pronounced your surnames correctly, guys. Following that, we will get a perspective from a Dutch investor company in Wales, and we'll hear from their development director, James Christian. The company is called Backbase, and they are a fintech business based actually in Cardiff, but as I say, their parent company and headquarters are in the Netherlands. And then last, but by no means least, we will hear from the CEO and co-founder of Caerphilly-based cyber business, Arwen Collective, Daniel Lewis. And Daniel is going to share with us his experiences of developing their work in the Netherlands and how that's helping them grow their business. I really am grateful to all of our speakers today. I'll say this now early, for giving up their time and their insight. It really is much appreciated by myself and the listeners, I'm sure, on this call. In terms of asking questions, listeners, please feel free to post those questions in the chat bar, which is on the right-hand side of your screens, please. And we'll attempt to address as many of these as possible at the end of the session. It would be helpful if you could indicate who you're actually directing your question to. We've just got an hour for this session and a lot to get through. So without further ado, if I may, I shall hand you over to Christian and Johannes in The Hague. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Johannes Kerpenstein, and together with my colleague Christian van der Voode, we will give a short presentation today on how we as DIT at the UK Embassy in the Netherlands support UK businesses that want to export towards the Netherlands or that are looking for partnerships within the market, perhaps. Just want to mention before I start that the slides will be shared afterwards as well. So there are some bullet points and perhaps interesting information on the slides, and if you can't read them very well, then don't worry, they will be shared afterwards. We will start this presentation with a short overview on who we are as DIT in the Netherlands and how we can support your business, be it in cybersecurity, be it in fintech or the high-tech industry or any other sector. And then we will focus on two specific sectors. First, I will give some more detailed information about the financial service sector in the Netherlands, and then Christian will explain something about the opportunities within the cybersecurity sector in the Netherlands. So why would you go to the Netherlands? We put some key numbers here already, but one of the big reasons is perhaps already that the Netherlands is the third trade partner of the UK, which is pretty significant, perhaps also because it's pretty close as well. We like to say that it's kind of the gateway to Europe. I mean, it has the largest port, the port of Europe. I think it's something like the 10th largest in the world. You can't beat China. And we also like to believe that it's a competitive, open and innovative market. The Dutch market it's a relatively early adopter of technology. So if you come to the Netherlands with your product and your product is successful here, there is a high chance of being successful in other Western European markets as well. So it's kind of a gateway to the rest of Western Europe as well. 70% of the country is based on services, and as you perhaps know, the Dutch are the best English as a second language speakers in the world, which would kind of help any language barriers that you could have in other countries. Just want to show you this slide as well. It's an interesting website. It's business.gov.nl. It's perhaps, if you're really interested also about doing business in the Netherlands, it's good to also visit this site to give you some information about doing business in the Netherlands, how to start and run a business in the Netherlands, and information about VAT, excise duties, regulations, and licenses. So if you're really interested in the market, it's also good to have a quick look at this website. So then what as the IT can we do for your business in Wales? If you want to do business in the Netherlands, what can we do for you? Well, we have two different approaches, the proactive approach and the reactive approach. Like proactively, we really go into the market. And from, for example, my perspective, I specialize in financial services. We have talks with a lot of financial service institutions. We understand their innovation needs, and based on the needs, we organize trade missions and events and so on and so forth to kind of match the demand that we see here with the supply that we find, for instance, in Wales. Then there's also the reactive approach. If you as a Welsh company want to do business with the Netherlands, you can come to us and we can figure out how to make that happen in the best way possible by giving you the right information, the right contacts, and perhaps also invite you to the trade missions that we're organizing. So this is our team. You can't really read the email addresses below, I presume, but that doesn't really matter. We all are specialists of certain sectors. My colleague Christian here, for instance, does defense and technology in the broad sense of the word, but also a lot of focus on high technology like the semiconductor industry. I myself focus a lot of energy and financial services, and then we have colleagues that are also focusing on other sectors. So if you're not a cybersecurity or financial services company, don't worry. Just send us an email if you're interested in the Dutch market, and we can see if we can connect you with the right specialist. That's it about the Netherlands. So if you're interested on doing business in the Netherlands, please come to us and we can, together with our colleagues from the Welsh government, see how we can help you best. And then I quickly wanted to go into the fintech market. The fintech ecosystem in the Netherlands is quite a vivid ecosystem with around 400 fintechs that are there, which illustrates the amount of opportunities that there actually are in the market. And as I mentioned before, it's quite an early adopter of new technology, the Dutch markets, and the population is relatively tech savvy. For instance, 80% of the population does at least part of their purchases online, and almost 60% of the populations do their payments contactless. Oh yeah, well here's some market overview. Bullet points, which, well, you can read afterwards as well. I thought it was also just perhaps interesting to quickly go over the negative points. Well, let's say negative within brackets, is that the Netherlands is quite a risk-averse society as well, which is reflected by the fact that, well, it ranks quite low on the ease of doing business ranking. And one of the main reasons for that is that it is such a, well, relatively risk-averse society, which is also reflected by the fact that less than 1% of all transactions are credit card based. Everyone uses debit cards, and in the largest supermarket chain, you can't even pay with credit cards. And also compared to London, it's quite difficult to get credit, and compared to other countries, there are relatively low. There's a relatively low investor protection. So despite that, the corporate venture funds of the three largest banks have more than $500 million to spend. It would help your case if you're looking for funding, for instance, if you're already making revenue and if you already have the backing of a large UK client in the UK. Then I quickly wanted to give an overview. Okay, what are the potential key clients in the Netherlands? Well, I mean, the Dutch market. It is a large market, but it's also very concentrated. So the three largest banks, ABN AMRO, ING, and Rabobank, they have around 84% of the market share, and the four largest insurers, which are ASR, Nationale Nederlanden, Achmea, and Aegon. If you want more information on that, please send an email later. Then we can go more into depth. They have around 80% of the market share. So that kind of, I mean, and they're huge companies, which is also. And if you want, by the way, more information on what kind of associations there are, or if you want to be get in contact with regulators, we can also see if we can provide that for you. So you can also see it in this slide here. For instance, the insurers, they're quite big asset managers as well. But the largest asset managers in the Netherlands are the pension-owned asset managers. The three largest that are over here, APG, PGGM, and MN, they have around €1 trillion euros of assets under management. So I mean, and they're also looking for innovations to kind of deal with the challenge that they have, like more sustainable investment and that kind of stuff. Just one last thing that I wanted to mention as well, which is perhaps interesting if you're more focused on insurers. The Dutch are known to insure everything, so which is good to know if you want to come to the market. They like to insure their wedding against rainfall. Some even insure themselves against the end of the world. So it's good to know that they really like to insure themselves, which is perhaps a nice kind of thing to know. Yeah, that's kind of the quick overview that I wanted to do, and now I will give the floor to. Oh no, the last thing, yeah. Which is perhaps interesting to know if you're a fintech business, is the most of the fintech business in the Netherlands focus on payments, financial software, lending software, but not so much on artificial intelligence and machine learning. So if the product or service that you have has artificial intelligence or machine learning technology in it, it could also be interesting for the market because it's relatively underrepresented. Yeah, then I want to give the floor to Christian as well, who will give you a quick overview on the cybersecurity side of things. Thank you.
Thanks, Johannes. Double checking that I'm on the right mic. Yes. I'm going to talk a little bit about cyber. Because, well, of course, there's a bit of overlap going on here. When we're looking at the Dutch market, you know, the Netherlands is really, I like to call it Europe's data nexus. So it's a very connected country, a very large tech and IT sector. About 97% of all Dutch people and 91% of all Dutch businesses have access to fast cable internet. So that's faster than 30 Mbps. And the Amsterdam region, and that's a picture of it right there, is the M6 internet exchange. The Amsterdam region has the second largest internet exchange point in the world, actually. And the Groningen region houses some of the largest EMEA data centers for big tech companies from the United States, particularly for Google, for Microsoft, and for Apple. So that means there is a high demand to innovate security of critical and non-critical infrastructure. This demand we see kind of primarily pertains to cyber solutions in threats around ransomware, phishing, fraud, and spyware. But very much also about, you know, helping kind of these big companies manage their large data flows. What we also see, because, you know, these large companies are looking for kind of new and innovative solutions, that they partner up relatively easy with startups. The startup corporate interaction is very good, which means that it's a highly mature startup ecosystem here with a lot of public-private investment that also spins off to the private sector. But of course, we have two companies following me as well. So I'm very eager to hear what they have to say about that as being, let's say, the real life examples of actually knowing if what I'm saying is also relates to the reality. The next slide, yeah. So kind of the key players in these ecosystems, they mostly revolve around government, around financial services, and critical infrastructure. I kind of put pictures here of the kind of three main examples, and also the three cities that they mostly revolve around. The first one is a picture of the Ministry of Security and Justice in The Hague. That also includes the National Police, the Dutch NCSC, intelligence services, but the bubble in The Hague is actually quite a bit wider than only the national government, with the information agency from NATO also hosted there, and Europol headquarters also in The Hague. And we'll also work together a lot with these public-private partnerships around the Hague Security Delta and the ecosystem that has its place there. Other ministries, of course, include the Defense Ministry, who look more on the offensive side. So that also includes the Cyber Command. And another ministry that is also very active in this world is the Ministry of Economic Affairs. They have founded the Digital Trust Center, which really focuses on helping SMEs and smaller companies kind of get cybersecurity as well. You know this, of course, but those large corporates and organizations, they normally have a lot more expenses to set aside for cybersecurity. But for SMEs, that can be difficult to prioritize. At the same time, it is a vital part of the Dutch economy. So the Ministry of Economic Affairs really helps, creating a platform by risk pooling, resource pooling for SMEs, and buying in bulk from solution providers to also make sure that they can be cyber secure. The next part, financial services, that very much overlaps with what Johannes already has said, of course, with the sectors that really are opportunities in the Netherlands. So when you think about payments, or especially data and access management, all the data and payment processing, that needs to be secure. So a lot of those solutions actually overlap with cybersecurity as well. So the big banks, you saw them on Johannes' slides, and we'll send them around, as he mentioned. ING, Rabobank, NIBC, also insurers, Aegon, NN, and so the pension providers, APG and MN, are really looking for cyber solutions as well, both in terms of corporate venturing as well as buying solutions to implement in their business offering. Final part, critical infrastructure. It's a Schiphol Airport, which, actually probably looks like this with all the airplanes grounded at the moment. But they are very active in cybersecurity as well. Also in terms of working together with the Marechaussee, who does the border patrol functions in the Netherlands, and does the identity and access management. Also works with the Port Authority here in Rotterdam to make sure there's security of maritime shipment and a lot of pen testing, and of course the national railways. So it's very very broad, but as I said, all these sectors are really looking to be a bit of ahead of the curve, and are generally early adopters of new tech. So I guess that is good news for you, especially when we're talking about the subjects of emerging tech. Moving on, I actually have something exciting to share with you. All the things that we are talking here about, of course, we are talking to you from a distance. We can't do this physically, but we're doing this from our situation room. It almost looks like in Rotterdam. But we want to keep this dialogue going, and we can't wait for physical events to return again. So we're building an online platform, an online community platform around cyber and fintech. CFSI, it's called. CF stands for Cyber Fintech Summit. The S, because we had a summit last year. We're reusing the event. CFSI, CFS on the internet. It's an online community platform, as I mentioned. The main function will be that there is a directory with all the exciting tech that we have to offer from the UK, through which buyers and investors from the Netherlands can roam and select and get into contact with you if you make your profile on there. And at the same time, they will also post innovation challenges around specific calls that you will also be able to respond to. To keep the community alive, we'll also be posting exclusive interviews and insight sessions. So really kind of this thought leadership stuff going, right? Specific intersections between the things that we find challenging both in the UK and in the Netherlands. Yeah. We're looking to launch in March 2021. So keep an eye out. The link will also be in the slides that is sent to you. We do hope to see you there, and of course we'll stick around for questions now as well. But if we don't see you right now at the Q&A round, we do hope to see you online in March 2021. And with that, I kind of want to close this session. That's the final slide. Thank you so much for your attention, and with that, I like to hand the floor back to you. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you very much indeed, Christian and Johannes. Much appreciated. Can I ask you a very quick question around CFSI? Is that free to register, to businesses to register online for free?
There will be kind of different subscription models, so that's still a little bit what we're looking for. What we also want to make sure is what we do really find important here is that people have a little skin in the game, right? So it will probably be kind of an initial trial run for a reduced fee, and then you know, when you do get some traction on there, we would ask you for a reinvestment to also make sure that the program and the platform will be able to sustain itself.
Yeah.
But initially, we are looking to, well, keep the threshold as low as possible.
Yeah, and so initially
they can't hear you, Hannes. Just 1 second, and
I can hear him. I can hear him.
Initially as well, if there's no cure, no pay. So if initially, if you are not being connected with, well, any potential buyers at all, then, well, I mean, you don't have to pay as well. And then when the platform develops later on, we might perhaps change this kind of subscription model. But initially, there's a very low boundary of getting access to the platform.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed, guys. I really appreciate your presentation there. I've jumped the gun a bit there and snuck a question in sneakily myself. But, thanks for answering that. I'd now like to move on, if we can, and invite James Christian, who's the development director of a fintech business based in Cardiff, Backbase, but actually parent company is in the Netherlands, and invite James, please, to share his insights as a director of that business based here in Wales. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. I said I'm James Christian. I head up the UK R&D hub for Backbase. We're based in Cardiff, and it's my 4th year at the company. Quick intro about myself, bit of background. Studied computer science in Cardiff, followed the classic software developer path into tech leadership roles. Originally working in Cardiff, then moved to Hampshire, London, and now back to Cardiff for this opportunity. I've worked in startups, scale-ups, innovation labs, larger enterprises across a range of industries such as digital TV, fashion, e-commerce, education tech, and fintech. And today really is about talking about what it's like to work in a Dutch tech company. Bit of an insider's impression. I'm not really talking about trading with a Dutch company per se, but more around this sort of ongoing relationship and comparing and contrasting with the UK experience that I've had. And then also touching a bit on the Welsh fintech opportunity that I see there. A full caveat, Backbase are the only Dutch company I've ever worked for, so it's very much of a very tight lens on this. And in reality, a lot of the times I'm talking about Amsterdam over the Netherlands per se. So just some caveats there. So the inevitable introduction into kind of what Backbase is, so you guys are all on the same page, I guess. I'm pretty sure most people on this call aren't necessarily in the market to build a new banking app, but just for a bit of background, founded in 2003 in Amsterdam, a privately owned company, now over 1,000 employees around the globe. And our promise really is to help banks become loved by their customers, where customer experience really is now the key battleground for financial organizations. So we focus on banks and credit unions, and we help them build the best-in-class customer and employee-facing experiences like applications, websites, and API channels. And then we also help digitize and streamline processes like customer onboarding, product origination. And our mission is to be installed on 10% of the world's devices so they use the experiences we build. And to explain the kind of landscape today, on the left-hand side of this slide, you're seeing the kind of challenges that the incumbent banks are facing. Lots of silos, legacy applications, duplication, and that impacts the business efficiency because things are very fragmented and very expensive to operate. So in order to compete with the likes of the neobanks these days, who are kind of a bit more tech savvy, we see financial services needing to move to something like on the right-hand side of the picture, where we have one platform that aggregates the value and orchestrates these connected experiences. We're the backbone for over 100 banks around the globe, lots of the world leading banks and credit unions. And thankfully, we are in the top right-hand corner of most of the magical analyst quadrants, which show that we're doing a good job. So really then to touch in and reflect a little bit on the experiences with Backbase in Amsterdam and Cardiff. So for myself personally, I was looking for an opportunity to come back home. So always keeping an eye out about who's moving in South Wales. And I was struggling to find companies who were doing things in the way that would really interest me. And one thing I think Backbase really did well is they communicated their core values well, very strong product focus. They demonstrated how they empowered their teams, modern tech stack, very people-centric, and they paid well. And I was really excited about building on what has started in Amsterdam and try and bring some of it back to Wales. This is a video, there's no sound, made by some of my colleagues in Amsterdam. So clearly we borrowed the weather from Amsterdam in Wales. But one of the key things for me, especially moving back from London, the benefits of working with an Amsterdam headquartered company is access to a real multicultural community, really diverse, open to a large expat community. And given that our product targets a global market, I think it's really key that those diverse perspectives are inputting into that product to make sure we have a better offering. And contrast that with day one for me at Backbase in Cardiff, it was 7 white guys sat around a table talking about Top Gear. So I'm very happy to say things have moved on since those days. In practical terms, 90% of the population speaking English, loads of shared cultural touch points, music, football, culture. They even get our terrestrial TV if you want to watch Coronation Street when you're on a trip over there. But less than an hour direct flight to Amsterdam. I genuinely can sometimes get to the Amsterdam office faster than I can get to our East London office, and I've even done day trips. You do have to suffer from the KLM cheese sandwich when you travel over, but apart from that, it's not too bad. As a nation, my experience has been they're not overly nationalistic, very open, very welcoming, even to Belgians, I'd say. There's a hell of a lot of talent swirling around the city, with some real big hitters, and I think what that gives is, like all major tech hubs, these headline acts really support talent and expertise flywheel. They really foster a strong dev community, user experience community, and these skills transfer and move and scale as people move company to company. And this is something out of the 2019 Tech Nation report, showing they're really no slouches. The Dutch punch above their weight in so many industries, including digital. So clearly they're doing something right, and we've got an opportunity to learn there. So Backbase Cardiff started in the back of the Toby Carvery in Cardiff in 2016, and today we're over 70 software engineers, product owners, scrum masters, QA, UX specialists, building product lines in Cardiff, and we've grown another 20 roles this year, and also opening up a Bristol hub. We're the second largest Backbase product development hub globally. And I guess key for us is what we borrowed from Amsterdam. You probably could tell from the videos and these photographs. We borrowed a lot from the workplace decor, the signage, the color schemes, even the textures and the materials. And we're very lucky to have been in the bonded warehouse or sat on the water. That gives us a bit of a link there. Our very happy British water. But more importantly, it was important for us to keep that kind of energy, the startup vibe. We eat together, we play together, we genuinely share the values of our Dutch colleagues, but we act on them differently sometimes. And what I would say in the 4 years we've been operating now, we've built a strong reputation for engineering excellence in the organization. And in my opinion, we're entrusted with some of the most complex and technical UX challenges in the company. Okay, I'm going to hit the inevitable cliche, so please take all these with a bit of a pinch of salt, but sometimes cliches tend to resonate if there is a grain of truth in them. They are the tallest nation in the world. They do love their cheese and sour milk, and you have to be careful, bikes do appear from everywhere. This was a recent tweet from Rory Sutherland, where he's really playing on the observation, the classic observation of the Dutch aversion to downstairs curtains. And I have lots of video calls with my Dutch colleagues, so that's not entirely true. But it is a really interesting Google rabbit hole where you start learning about Calvinism's impact on the Dutch culture and how transparency is really important to the guys. So I surveyed some of my expat colleagues on both sides of the North Sea. I think it's fair to say the legendary Dutch bluntness can be real. Best not to take offense easily. The Brits, we certainly take too long to get to the point. We really need to cut to the chase, sell the value quickly, avoid BS, avoid waffle. This can also impact, from my perspective, when we've interviewed people and the British guys walk away thinking, yeah, that guy was great, and maybe the sharpness of the communication wasn't quite there for the guys joining the interview on the Dutch side. Pragmatism really keen, whatever works, even if it's far from perfect, I think would be fair to say. And the work-life balance, unlike, I would say, from my experience working in London or friends of mine who've worked in Manhattan, where people really feel they need to chain themselves to the desk to work themselves to the bone to get ahead in their career. In Amsterdam, I wouldn't be surprised that, if the 9 to 5 is held quite sacred, that balance is important. Some of our expat sales guys have been quite surprised by some of the meager offerings we make to clients and prospects on a night out of wining and dining, and some people would say cheap, others would say frugal. And I'll share the slides later, but I found it quite amusing. Some very classic kind of British English vagaries that really get lost in translation when communicating with our colleagues. But I'm not going to take it away. Their English is fantastic, much better than my Dutch. So coming on to some of like the Dutch challenges, maybe if you're trying to operate a business in the Netherlands, dare I say it, maybe some Brexit, I should say that word, opportunities for us. But yeah, really highly competitive market in terms of talent. It's certainly in Amsterdam, which obviously impacts retention, cost of hiring. When I was in London, I was being contacted quite frequently about roles in Amsterdam, so they're really sourcing across the waters. And people have been known to take kind of any role to get into the Netherlands, then hop on into mainland Europe. But the key thing there is the Netherlands does not equal Amsterdam, and there's lots of other digital hubs across the country. There was a lucrative 30% tax-free allowance for highly skilled migrant workers, which is relatively recently shortened from 8 years to 5 years, so that benefit is less impactful. There's certainly in Amsterdam a very high cost of living, and I guess you've got to reflect a little bit these days on what does that mean in this remote first workforce. How do they benefit from that? I say more restrictive label, or certainly in the eyes of the employer. So I'm no Dutch HR specialist, but they seem to have stronger, more enforceable employee rights than in the UK. And it's very typical for people not to be on a permanent contract for at least the first year or two of working at a company. One of the things that caught us out a little bit was they certainly have R&D tax relief schemes, much like we have in the UK. But whereas in the UK we claim retrospectively, in the Netherlands you communicate your project goals ahead of time. And I say language barrier. Again, it seems very strange for me to say that given the amount of high quality English spoken, but that doesn't necessarily mean people really want to work English first in the workplace. I've anecdotally heard of a few people who are not so interested in necessarily working for an English first organization, but I would say that's very much in the minority. So then just finishing up really on the fintech opportunity for Wales. So obviously, well, for me it's obvious, I guess, but fintech and financial services is a key growth area for the Welsh government. Industry bodies like Fintech Wales really help galvanise that strength and depth of expertise we have locally. And I think, even promoting things like the Cardiff is recognised as one of the top 10 fintech hubs in the UK. I see our local strength being that, in some ways, the converse is we have fewer expats. People seem to hang around longer, mainly because we're from the area, which gives us the opportunity to build more depth in our domain. Certainly cost of living is better in South Wales, and again, maybe increasingly important where that living workspace becomes increasingly important for remote working. And also we have a kind of a bit of a broader age range of people in our office, and access to a fantastic grads coming out of Cardiff, Swansea University, University of South Wales, and the National Software Academy. So how can companies like Backbase support the Welsh fintech opportunity? Well, the reality is banks are adopting a multi-vendor ecosystem play, so picking the best of breed vendors for their needs, not necessarily a one size fits all. So really they are looking for innovative, best-in-class, specialized, localized products that are differentiators for them, because as I said, customer experience and security is the battleground they're fighting on. So our platform essentially acts as a digital hub that brings together all these elements into a successful banking platform. We manage the platform on the channel, and then we integrate and aggregate the value from other fintech providers and partners. So if you can satisfy, say, a local need, like categorizing transactions based on vendor names in a local market, so you can set spending budgets for eating out versus grocery, etc. There's opportunity there. It's not in our interest to tackle every problem a bank has due to the specialized focus a niche firm could bring to that problem space. So, Backbase is already in the door at 100 banks around the globe. Our foot is in the door, and we're keen to introduce innovative players to build a better product. So yeah, the opportunity is there to work together, create turnkey integrations into our platform, and deliver the value on day one through partnerships, reselling, introductions. And that's it. That's the end of my little spiel. So let's make it happen. Thank you, guys.
James, thank you very, very much indeed for that very, very interesting insight into Backbase. I didn't know you prior to that, so I found that very, very interesting overall, and I'm sure our listeners will. I have got a question for you, but I think I'll keep that to the end, if I may. Indeed. And move on with the session and introduce now, please, Daniel Lewis, who is the CEO and co-founder of, as I mentioned earlier, Arwen Collective. They are a Wales-based SME, based actually in Caerphilly here in South Wales, and they work in the cyberspace. They're on their particular growth journey now, and I understand that the Netherlands is part of that journey, Daniel. So over to you.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Tony. It's very nice words. So I'll start with the mission of Arwen, and then maybe go through some of our history, just to put everything in perspective, and why we're really interested in the Netherlands. So Arwen Collective, we are a software company founded in 2017. We specifically develop cybersecurity solutions. And our mission is to make society safer. And we do that by increasing the resilience of our critical national infrastructure companies, so energy, water, transportation, and other forms of manufacturing as well. Yes, and we do that through software products that we develop ourselves here in Wales. We have two software products. One is called Profile, and that addresses an EU and UK-wide regulation called the NIS Directive. That regulation basically says that critical infrastructure companies need to be at a certain level in terms of cybersecurity policies and procedures. And so Profile actually helps those organizations to adhere to that particular regulation. Our other product is called Dot. It's much more technically complex, and that essentially helps these industrial organizations to reduce the cyber risk within their operational environments. So you know those control systems and those robotic systems that you see in factories, they all have a certain level of cyber risk to them, and we're doing what we can with our Dot product to reduce that risk. So as I said, we were founded in 2017, and here in South Wales, we've grown quite a bit since then. Within certain parameters, we are only a team of 7 still. But in 2018, we took part in a Wales accelerator, Wales-based accelerator called the IoT Accelerator, and that came with some investment. We received our first bit of revenue in 2018 as well, from a large defense prime called Raytheon. We went through our second round of investment in 2019, at the beginning of 2019, which was an SEIS round, so based in the UK. We made our first product sale in 2019. We went through another accelerator called TechNation Cyber, which was focused specifically on scale-ups within the cybersecurity sector in the UK. and we won our first major project with the UK Ministry of Defence at the end of 2019, which was a year-long project. In 2020, obviously, we had the pandemic and the lockdowns, so things became a little bit more difficult. But actually, because people were thinking a lot more about their cybersecurity of working from home, and businesses were thinking a lot more about resiliency, we actually gained quite a lot of interest through the last 12 months. We took part in a yet another accelerator called the Google for Startups UK Immersion program, which was focused on startups outside of London across the UK, and that was very good and good to be associated with Google. And then we also started to look for our third round of investment, and we are in the middle of that round. Unfortunately, that round is not closed yet, so I can't be too precise about the details. I am going to be intentionally vague about that, unfortunately. But as you can see, we've had a really great build-up here in the UK, and now it's time for us to strategize on our world domination. I mean our international expansion. But before I do that, I am going to talk about Brexit. So I was born in the middle of the 80s, when the UK was part of the European Economic Community. And of course, in '93, the European Union was established and the concept of European Union citizen was established. So I very much grew up with the EU. We had a good number of family holidays in the EU, and Europe is very close to my own heart. So when the referendum happened in 2016, the result was actually quite a blow to me, and to those of those other people that I knew who felt quite close to the concept of EU membership and EU citizenship. So not only that, but also in 2016, I was working as a senior researcher at a university, and we were applying for Horizon 2020 funding. That's from the European Union, and that particular bid for funding was affected by the referendum result. But I mean, today I've come to accept that the Brexit has happened. But I still feel equally British and European. So I think my point here is that hopefully you can see that expansion into Europe is something for me very personally important, and it was always part of the business plan as I was growing the company. That aside, from a technical point of view, Arwen's solutions are ideal for the European market. So here in Europe, I'm not going to say EU now. Here in Europe, we have a good deal of legacy infrastructure right across Europe, and that's because Europe has been pretty much at the forefront of critical infrastructure development for years. But that does mean that infrastructure is legacy. We have things in place that have been in place for 10, 20, 30, and in some cases 40 years. And so there is that legacy equipment just laying around in all parts of the EU and UK. But on the other hand, Europe is investing. Europe is investing in Industry 4.0 technology. That's the technology to make everything a lot more efficient, and it allows for closer monitoring of services, so that the operations are not disrupted by disruption, various disruptions. So yes, we've built with this all in mind, considering all of this. and that's why we've decided to focus in on Europe before some of the other regions of the world. So we're not too interested in the Americas right at this moment. The Americas have much newer infrastructure. They have much more automation, stronger levels of security built in already, and we're really targeting in on those legacy and Industry 4.0 technologies combined. One final thing that I will say about the Brexit situation is that I do strongly believe that everything is workable. And although we have some short-term hurdles to get over with Brexit, we do have other opportunities, and thank goodness for that trade agreement and membership of things like the Council of Europe, NATO, OECD, Interpol, WTO, so many others. Right, so now down to why the Netherlands is particularly attractive for us. Industry 4.0 and smart cities technology is recognized by the Netherlands, and is an investment area for them, and so that is a key indicator for us. The infrastructure in the Netherlands is very important. So the reliance on water control technology within the Netherlands is very important. Water levels rising and being able to control those water levels is very important. The ports are very important to the Netherlands, and they also have operational technology controlling those systems. And of course, there's a lot of investment in agriculture and food technologies, and making those smart. I found that the Netherlands has quite a lot of cultural similarities to the UK. In particular, the humour is quite familiar. And of course, you've already heard that English is very widely spoken, especially in the business world. Although I am learning Dutch myself, I am at the beginnings of learning, but I am trying. Ik probeer. And then, of course, the distance. Netherlands is very close. With the Eurostar going from London, with the flights, and so on, it can really act as an international hub as well, both within the EU and outside. And then finally, I would just want to talk about the areas of practical support that we've had. I want to do a little bit of a shout out to Innovation Quarter, which are based in South Holland, and they specifically look at promoting international businesses into the Netherlands. They've been very helpful at making connections, and telling us about how to do business in the Netherlands. There's a very interesting initiative run by a single person in the Netherlands to try to establish a connection between startup founders and investors in the Netherlands, and that's called Startup Roulette. So that's a very interesting thing for those wanting to find investment in the Netherlands. And also a shout out in particular to the Hague Security Delta, which is it seems to be one of the strongest cybersecurity clusters in Europe, alongside Cyber Wales, of course. They do some great work with events, with connecting cybersecurity companies with industrial and professional partners across the Netherlands. And then, of course, both UK government and the Welsh government provide all kinds of help with international trade, from everything like trade missions to helping with market research. They are generally a very good source of information for those looking to export from the UK or set up business abroad. With all of that said, we are looking at establish an EU base, and we are looking to do that within the Netherlands. In particular, we'll probably be looking at The Hague because of the cybersecurity community there and the closeness with various security organizations, international security organizations there. And that will be this year. Firstly, to establish sales within the Netherlands and across Europe, but then also to start hiring from a technical perspective to help with deployments and technical support across Europe. The UK office, the Welsh office, will continue to be an overarching organisation with a view for UK business and non-EU business. So that's our plans, that's our support and our history. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Daniel. I can tell you're a glass half full person like myself when it comes to, certainly when it comes to Brexit as well, and it has caused issues. And I've got a comment here from the audience saying, Daniel, thank you for mentioning Brexit, as it sometimes feel like the elephant in the room. It's affected most of us in business in many negative ways, but I hope you overcome, progress, and grow your business. So I hope that person as well, I can't tell who it is, but I hope that they're glass half full as well, and they're able to overcome undoubtedly some of the negative aspects of the EU end of the EU transition period. So hopefully we can help there. On that note, I think if you don't mind, I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to pose for yourself and also for James from Backbase. Firstly, to you, Daniel, I know that you were one of only 2 Wales-based companies chosen to be out of 30 companies from the UK who were chosen for the DIT's Tech Academy, which I think is it a 9 or 12-month program of support that you've got there. I just wondered whether you could give us a bit of an insight into how's that going and how do you hope that it helps you, and how did you actually, get involved in that? Was it something you had to apply for?
Yeah, it is something that we've had to apply for, and actually it was probably about 5 or 6 different people that said that we should apply for it. So we ended up doing it, and thankfully we were given a position with the other 29 companies. So with that particular program, the DIT Tech Export Academy, it is focused, this particular cohort is focused on solution providers within the smart city space. And in particular, it targets it targets the Asia Pacific market. Because of course, smart cities across Asia Pacific is probably more of an initiative than other parts of the world. There's a lot of smart city initiatives across Asia Pac, and so we wanted to get involved with that from a longer term perspective. As I say, Europe is our focus for this year. It's certainly the case that we'll be looking to other regions of the world beyond this year. So that's putting us in a good position. It's giving us some training, giving us some virtual trade missions, and maybe maybe a physical trade mission at some point in the future, a pandemic permitting.
Indeed, yeah. I know in particular Vietnam. I had the pleasure of visiting there a number of years ago, and smart cities there are right high on the agenda for that wonderful country, and they're very good, tech savvy and go ahead countries. So no doubt, once you've conquered Europe, they'll be on your agenda. And it's good to see that you're planning ahead and taking that longer term strategic view around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming on to James from Backbase. James, I wondered if you have any tips for Wales-based SMEs who are looking to target opportunities to work with banks or financial institutions, not just necessarily in the Netherlands, but ways in which they should perhaps approach that. Is it something that Backbase could, or yourself could potentially help with? And would you be happy, for example, if people on the call wanted to reach out to you, would you be happy to for that to happen?
No, certainly. So as I described in my presentation, the marketplace is something we support, and it's critical to us. We know we can't go in and satisfy every need of the bank. So no, absolutely. I have a partner, someone who's responsible for partnerships and collaborations, and we do that already. We have some end-to-end integrations with some payment providers, for example, already. And if you think about it, that's what the customer wants, right? The bank want low friction. They just want a turnkey. Suddenly they've got payments, bill payments end to end. They've got this feature end to end. So vendors like us that kind of own that channel, a really good way in. I'll just say generally, and I'm sure Dan would reflect on this as well. With any engagement with banks or financial institutions, to expect to be patient. I think it's a long cycle time on sales with these organizations, but what I would say is lockdown accelerated a hell of a lot of that. So so the opportunity is there for the taking. You look at how cash is being used, I think it's dropped to some ridiculously low number, like 20% of transactions being cash now. So there's an absolute laser focus on the digital strategy across banks. So this is the opportunity.
Right. No, appreciate that, James. Well, a lot of information, obviously, to take in today from yourselves and also from Christian and Johannes. We're right up against. We've got a few minutes left before the end of the session, so I don't know whether Christian or Johannes want to come back in now and make any final remarks. Gents, any observations on what you've heard? Oh, it's Christian, I think.
It's just me now. Yeah, sorry, Johannes had to actually walk out for a second. Okay. No, nothing specific to add. I mean, just we're really looking forward, and it was really interesting to hear the perspectives of both companies. And what I really liked about Daniel's talk is that he feels that Brexit is relatively manageable in especially the tech trade. I was kind of anticipating that question if that would come from the audience, and that was the point that I wanted to make in that perspective as well. We're trying to keep the friction as low as possible, and the platform that we're trying to launch here in March is really aimed at making matchmaking more efficient, and making sure that we keep that bilateral dialogue going, and we don't lose space in following up on those introductions that have been made also at the event last year with the shout outs that you gave to the Hague Security Delta and Innovation Quarter. I think it's very interesting, or very good to keep those relations warm and alive. So it's really been a pleasure talking to you and hearing your perspectives as well, to know that it's not just us saying it or shouting in the desert, but it's definitely carried by other organizations as well. So on that note, I'm looking forward to see what the future will bring, and to the audience, I hope to be able to welcome many of you to our platform and to the Netherlands in the future. Thanks.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much indeed, Christian. Daniel raised Brexit. One thing I'd like to say to our listeners there, if you are experiencing difficulties with the end of the EU transition period in whatever shape or guise, then there is help available. The UK government, obviously, there's a lot of information online from the UK government, but also via the Business Wales helpline or telephone number. If you want to make a note of the number, it's 03000 603,000, and also if you visit the website of businesswales.gov.wales, then there's a way in which you can actually email in your particular query, and that will be picked up, as I say, by the helpline, and we'll do our level best to either connect you with the right person to be able to solve your issue, or do it ourselves. So that's it from us all for now. I shall. All that remains for me really is to thank all of our speakers today. I really do appreciate you giving up your time, your insight, your experience, and your knowledge, and your offer to help further as well. And I wish those in business every success going forward, and look forward to working with our colleagues in DIT in the Netherlands also. So on that note, I shall call the session to an end. Thank you very much, all.
Likewise, Tony. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Emerging Tech Fest. Join us again on our virtual live sessions or watch us on playback anytime, anywhere.